definitely in the money. Shutdown averted, but defining the budget for fiscal year 2011 was kind of small potatoes compared to the battle over raising the nation's debt limit, a task President Obama plans to tackle this week. How will Washington face its next battles? Joining us now from Capitol Hill in a First on Fox Business interview, Representative Tom Cole. He is a Republican from Oklahoma and a member of the House Budget Committee. Congressman, we were hoping to have you on Friday. You got very busy, I know, with voting and everything that happened, but it's good to have you on the Monday after this whole thing and spin it forward for us. Friday, is that it, or does this just portend major, bigger battles as we look at the debt ceiling?
Actually, you're exactly right, Liz. We have the big fights are coming up. Last week was dramatic. This week could potentially be historic. Certainly the next several weeks and couple of months. We've got both the Ryan budget, which will come up this week. We passed it out of Budget Committee last week. That really gets at the drivers of the deficit problem because Paul takes on, committee takes on the entitlement structure, and that's where we all know we're going to have to go. And then, of course, later on we're going to have the debt ceiling vote, and I think the Speaker's made it abundantly clear that in order to have Republican support to raise the debt ceiling, there's going to have to be some pretty dramatic concessions from the administration, the Democrats.
But we all understand that some compromise has to be reached, certainly, but there is a group, of course, of certain Republicans who are closely aligned with the Tea Party, say, for example, Michelle Bachmann, who were unhappy with this. In fact, she was quoted as saying she was disappointed that you, meaning some of the Republicans, missed the November election mandate of cutting. But I would argue, isn't it also part of the mandate to not destroy jobs, and that we would have lost 800,000 jobs if the government shut down?
Oh, I think there's no question about that. Again, these are my friends, and they're on the right side of the fights most of the time. But, you know, politics is a game of negotiation. We don't control the United States Senate. The president does have to sign something for it to become law. I think John Boehner did an incredible job of, frankly, just squeezing every dime out of that we could, getting a couple of policy votes and some votes in the Senate, and then beyond that, setting us up to do very well in passing Ryan's budget and moving on to the debt ceiling vote. You know, if we get a Republican Senate and a Republican president in 2012, we can do a lot more. But I think it's hard to quibble with how well we did last week and how well we have the potential to do going forward.
You're probably right. Most Americans want to see things happen here and want to see that compromise. You just mentioned the debt ceiling. Will you vote to raise it?
It depends on what is coupled with it. If it's just simply raise the debt ceiling, no, I won't. And, you know, President Obama didn't vote to raise the debt ceiling. It is a little bit hypocritical for him now to be telling us how critical this is when he was in the United States Senate. He didn't think it was very critical. He certainly didn't support President Bush. But we think it's very important to send a message, if we do raise the debt ceiling, that it's not going to be business as usual here in Washington, D.C., that we're going to make some substantial steps in the right direction on entitlements, on budget process, and on additional spending cuts. If you do those things, you might be able to piece together a bipartisan coalition to raise the deficit ceiling. If you don't, it won't happen, and we would have a great deal of chaos.
So you don't believe Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan, who says this would be totally disastrous if you guys do not vote to raise the debt ceiling?
Well, I think it would be, you know, look, I think John Boehner's got it right. This is not something that we want to do. We know it needs to get done. But at the end of the day, it's got to have something coupled with it that shows we're serious about getting the deficit under control. If it is,
we got to run here.
Can get there.
I'm so appreciative that you got on, even though we couldn't get you Friday. Thank you for being on today. We appreciate it.
Liz, thank you.
Congressman Tom Cole from Oklahoma. Closing bell ringing in 26 minutes. Oil